How do you think President Biden is going to do in terms of following what's he going to talk about at the United Nations?
So we're going to hear a full-throated defense of the West's approach to Ukraine. But here's what I would watch for, is I think you can expect to see President Biden go after Putin on attacking the rules-based order, a systemic global argument. And what's fascinating about that is it connects with what I think we're going to hear more and more from President Biden domestically. Like President Biden, I think that our reporting shows that the Independence Hall speech is the beginning, not the end. And I think that you can expect to hear him talk a lot about what they internally, their euphemism is illiberal forces. So that's election deniers, that's insurrectionists. I think you're going to hear the president calling that out more and more. My reporting shows that he's very aware of the sort of dark tone of the Trump speech in Youngstown, Ohio, and I think we're going to hear more about that.
Who was darker? They're competing for darkness, are they not?
Well, you can argue that rematch has begun, right? Because they both clearly are engaging the other, and more for years, right? President Biden rarely said Trump's name. Like, I think he's going to become increasingly clear about what he sees.
Is that because he wants to run against Trump again? Is he choosing him as his his opponent, or? It's
always a mistake, right? Like that never seems to work out. But I don't think he has any choice. I think they recognize the gravity of the fact that at the moment, if President Trump wins, President Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. And if you look at his most recent rallies, that's clearer.
What do you think the chances are that he really runs? And what do you think the chances are that something happens legally or otherwise? I mean, I know everybody's on Twitter about whatever you think Letitia James is going to be saying today, and others.
I think they're right to be a Twitter about that, and it's very possible that announcement is even bigger than Decision Day that we've been talking about around this table. But the twist on that is, it's been true for a long time. The more legal trouble, the more financial trouble, the more political issues former President Trump has, I think the more likely he is to run and the sooner he is to announce. Because, of course, he sees it as protection. He sees it as a way to say, oh, it's all political.
Right. Do you think that the president prefers to talk about this rather than maybe some of the Fed's meeting today? Have you listed I'm going to list them a little bit later, but have you looked around? Do you want me to mention a couple of things that are happening economically?
Well, in keeping with the anxiety theme of the first hour.
I mean, it's really pretty staggering. I mean, inflation, 40-year highs, 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. We might get a third. Mortgage rates have doubled. Stock market is in a brutal bear market. No rise in household income in 2 years. It's actually been down.
Very calmly.
Yeah. But think about what would you point to that? Wow, I'm doing a bang-up job domestically.
Well, they're going to, of course, most recently point to heading off the rail strike. But what I would say about that list and what I'm going to be watching for this afternoon, like a fascinating phenomenon in polling, and you see it across polls, are people think the country's headed off a cliff, but you ask them how they are, people just say, no, I'm doing okay. Or people think their personal situation is good. Like, I think that headlines like your team is expecting from this afternoon, like that could help change that. And like if I'm in the White House, if I'm Democrats, seeing the red wave, which had turned into the red ripple, but it's headed back toward a red wave. Like, I really worry about the psychology of that announcement. Even people who don't understand it, don't really internalize it, they're like, oh, that's not good. That could lead to trouble for me and my family down the road.
Yeah, and Biden was pretty defensive about that. President Biden was pretty defensive about that when he was interviewed by 60 Minutes this week. Just that pushback that, wait a second, it's not that bad. It's slowing down. It's not going up as quickly.
Never want to be explaining, never want to be saying it's not that bad. Anytime you catch yourself saying that, even if you're saying it shortly, sharply, efficiently, in smart brevity, that is not, that's a problem.
I asked you before about whether Trump runs, but what do you think about Biden? And if not Biden, who?
The if you look at the President Biden's string of wins, I think he's clearly warming to a fight. And my reporting shows that he was exactly right when he said on 60 Minutes he has not decided for sure. I think people close to him would tell you he's warming more to it. And I think we're going to see that with this increasing willingness to take on the fight for small d democracy. If it's not him, I would look outside Washington. Governor Granholm of Michigan, I would look at if Senator Warnock in Georgia wins, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll just this week had him tied with Republican Herschel Walker, which was a surprise because Herschel Walker is an awesome football player. He's turned out not to be as awesome of a candidate. But if Senator Warnock would win, he'd be one to watch.
Yeah.